It's round, only 12 foot in diameter. The ceiling is only 6 foot 4 inches. Concrete. Over here is an army cot, draped with a single air mattress, blankets, covers for sleeping, and doubles as a couch when not being slept on. Right next to it is a good old beanbag chair, very comfortable. Over on this side is a large bar that my friend John and I built. Behind it served as a place to put food, clothes, water, the essentials. Up on the bar at each end of this 8-foot bar was a couple oil lanterns, giving just enough light for the space, small space, and the warmth for the cold winter nights. So in the morning, I get up, get dressed, have a little something to eat. Well, not eat, go down the hill for that. Get ready to go, and the only way out of this 12-foot diameter, 6'3" roof is through a steel cover on top. So I reach up, push this heavy steel cover over, get a little ladder, put it up in place, and I crawl up out of what we referred to as the hole in the ground, because it was underground. And peeking my head up like a little groundhog peeking out of a den, I look around, push the snow away from the opening from the night before, and proceed to get on out. Pick up the lid, put back onto cover my home. Look out around me, and there's an oasis of trees right here, up on top of a hill. Cattle down there at the bottom of the hill feeding on some hay that was put over the fence. And so I have a 1/4 mile trudge through the snow, down through the pasture, cross the fence, make my way over to my friend's house. We join up, have a little breakfast, and off to school we go. We've built several clubhouses and things all over that farm place, that being one of them. And it was made for sake of entertainment to begin with as a clubhouse that we did, emptied the water out of it, painted it up, made it nice. And I have always created these small spaces and places throughout my whole life, everything from the tree houses to the forts made out of your cushions and bed sheets over tables and everything that everybody has commonly done. And so in the teenage years, still we're creating these places and spaces, safe, secure sanctuaries. When my family was affected by a divorce, I had the opportunity to strike out and get my independence, and the clubhouse turned into my home. So at the age of 16, I left home and went down under. Finished out the school year through the winter and on into the summer, and that served as my first away from home place to live. So with that, it's a deal where there's a number of ways to have those wonderful, safe, secure sanctuaries. Now, we can begin by taking a look as we grow older and things, but as we take a look at the history of America and some of the housing that goes on that way. Ever since the pioneer days, the people that moved across, they built the small, tiny houses, as we refer to them now, but they are made out of the resources, the sustainability, nothing more than what they needed, and very resourceful. As we go forward in time, there are many things that affect the housing, like wars and the post-war, and all the families that needed to have a home after coming back from the war and things. And so you find what we refer to as the little bungalow homes. And so that served many, many families, and not much bigger than what we have for garages nowadays, 800 to 1,000 square feet. Then in the 70s, we got into bigger is better. And we were more concerned about the number of bedrooms, the square footage, number of baths, and things like that that came along with the social status. And so everything went up around the late 70s, around 1,800 to 2,000 square foot homes. After that, in about 2007 or whatever, the homes increased up to around 2,500 square foot, despite the decrease in the family size. Again, the square footage, bigger is better, was still going up. And then in this last decade, it seems as though there has been a movement, a trend, a reawakening of the smaller places. You see, nothing about the tiny houses or anything else is new at all. It is just the reawakening and coming back around to make use of those spaces that way. And so with that, for instance, a tiny house, from the post-war homes, you had anything from about 1,000 square foot to about 400 square feet. Somewhere in there was a small home. About 400 square feet on down becomes what we refer to now as a tiny house. And they even go as small as the 80 square feet or more that people live in now. There is a lot of the movement now with the tiny houses to be flexible and a way to move around with, and for the do-it-yourselfers to build something for themselves, whether it be for the sake of that flexibility or realizing that they don't want to have a mortgage and the upkeep of a large home to dictate their life, and they're ready to do something on a smaller scale. Like Raphael and Christy here, the man and wife built this, had no experience at all, and built this over this last year, and are very, very happily living in it with a teenage daughter. And another family that has come from Minneapolis, Minnesota, down this way to the Carolinas to come out to our area and be at better weather that they needed. But here is a man, wife, little girl, and a large dog. And yet still the mobility and the do-it-yourself capability of the tiny house on wheels, as they refer to it. Tiny houses are something that resemble a RV that would be going down the road, whether it be a fifth wheel or whatever, but the differences are the great flexibility and multifunctional capability outside and inside and with all the furnishings involved. It isn't just an RV that goes down the road for recreational vehicle, for recreation in 3 seasons. It is something that people live in for a 4-season capability. You can have it as cute as you want. It can be off wheels or whatever. So if you want the little cottage look and still be a tiny, less is best kind of capability, it can come as cute as you want, and your imagination never can stop as far as what you could do. You can go as contemporary. I've got caught up in doing a lot of homes, tiny houses, made out of cargo containers and shipping containers. I don't like to have the shipping containers look like containers on the outside, so I clad the outside and everything, put the insulation out there and things. So with the adage that it doesn't have to look like a container to be a container. And you have the flexibility like big Legos to do about anything you would like. We know that this is a movement that has come. It's not just a trend. It's not just something that is just a phase that people are going through and things. It is a reawakening to a smaller space, smaller homes. And when you realize that this has really become a movement, when there are so many reality shows that relate to all the tiny houses, the tree houses, and many other kinds of topics that we see all over the networks today. And so we come to a part where my involvement in all this, where did all that come from? I have been involved in the drafting, architectural type drafting and things, and drawing and design and building industry options throughout ever since high school. And then in '77, I started taking courses at a community college to learn more about the building industry, the electrical wiring and code, and a number of things. And then they had me teaching adult education as well on building procedures, estimating of residential construction, and a number of other things. I believe my philosophy is that nothing is worth having if it isn't worth sharing. And that goes as far as skill sets, and that goes as far as your knowledge that you can pass on by teaching others. And so I have always been doing that on a natural end of things. I had the opportunity as being faculty of the area college to be able to go to a seminar that I was brought aware of by the coordinator up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the University of Minnesota, and they had an underground space association referred to as doing their seminar entitled Going Under to Stay on Top. Well, alternative housing, everything, I don't do anything normal. And so that was right up my alley. So we went up to that seminar. I had the opportunity to give assistance to the people putting on the program. Long story short, they refunded the money and everything else, and then invited me to follow them around throughout the Midwest with all the rest of their programs that they were going under of the Going Under to Stay on Top. I had the opportunity and their blessings to be able to come back to my community college and put on a seminar there of the same title, Going Under to Stay on Top, on alternative housing. From that, people came to me afterwards and says, okay, you do the design, you do all of this, I can do the administration end of things, we'll find somebody to do the construction end of it, let's have a company. And so we incorporated with those three elements and built several earth-covered homes, solar passive, throughout the Midwest in '79 and '80, where I put 2 foot of earth over the top, all your southern exposure and things, and all of that still applies to even the tiny houses today. One of the slides that was up there earlier of the houses in the '70s, late '70s, was an earth-covered home. 2 foot of earth, flat lot, right along with in harmony with all the rest of the homes. That is one of the key elements I do believe in any design, is that it still carries that curb appeal, that capability of being something that you're proud of, and that it has the capability of having good resale capability. And so we get past our paradigms of thinking that it was either a mound of dirt or a hole in the ground, and now referred to as green roofs. So with that, I continue to go on and do things. Very, very blessed throughout my life that I can claim that I have never worked a day in my life, because everything that I have always done has been with such a passion that there was never a day, thank Lord, that I had to go into any kind of work and say, I don't want to be here. And so with those blessings, and again, passing things on, I have created and been organizing the Sustainable Simplicity meetup groups about the tiny houses, and putting those on here locally. I was drafted to come down this way to Kernersville to help out with a downtown revitalization, and in '95, and so this is much better than all the snow was up in the Midwest from Des Moines, Iowa. And so with that, I just continued to do a lot of those things. I started making all these spaces and places in my own backyard, right near Salem Lake, just off of Business 40. changing the world as we know it, as far as playing out there with skid loaders and things, just big boys with bigger toys. And creating everything from school bus conversions to tree houses to having the containers made into tiny houses and pontoon boats with tiny house on it. Obviously, it's a houseboat. And so there's always making the spaces and places that way, and then putting a little bit of that on Facebook. Then people come to me and they said, please help us fulfill our dreams of what we would like to do too. So I am a facilitator of those solutions for people. And so that's what I enjoy doing, and that is my passion. And so taking the containers and configuring them in many ways to be either places for beside a business, being in harmony with the business, for the night watchman to be at, to ones that stack on top of the other, big Legos, and made into the little communities. Now, the key is where is this going? There is already an emergence of all of the tiny house communities, if that's a better term to call it. For instance, there's RV parks where they say, okay, all the tents and campers out and all the park model homes or tiny houses in, and let's call it a community. And that gets away with some of the zoning issues that have to do with that plague us nowadays. Others are like at High Rock Lake, you have a little community of the little RV classification park model homes, and you have your little dock, your waterfront, and everything like that, but it's also classified as your tiny house, as we call it today. And so with that, there is a number of intentional communities, as much on-grid or off-grid as you would like to be able to be, that are coming about. And so with that, the thing is that what part of this movement or whatever can you take a part in? It's very easy. It's an option to take a look at the opportunities, begin to look at the different options of alternative housing. And then with that, you can make big plans to build, or little big plans to build little houses or whatever. But there's a number of things that you can do to become a part of it with just imagining what you could do, and then have fun with that. Thank you.